Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
Here's my story about that experience from when I was 6 years old. I'm 10 now, so some details might be a bit fuzzy, but I'll never forget what happened that day. It was my birthday, and my parents had promised to take me to the electronics store to pick out a special gift. My dad had built up a successful business over the years, so we were fortunate enough to be able to afford nice things. Still, my parents always taught me to be humble and grateful. When we arrived at the store, it was packed because of a huge sale. The lines were stretching all the way to the back, but I didn't mind waiting. I was too excited about getting my first iPad mini. My mom and I found our spot in the queue, and I could hardly contain my happiness. My mom asked me what I wanted to get. I excitedly pointed at the iPad mini display, telling her that was the one I wanted. She smiled and agreed it was a good choice. That's when things started getting weird. Behind us in line, this lady and her son showed up with a shopping cart absolutely loaded with gaming equipment. They had everything: a fancy monitor, a gaming computer, an expensive keyboard, and these really nice headphones. The son looked about 13 or 14, and right away I could tell he was trouble. Without any warning, he suddenly shoved me aside, calling me a tiny witch and telling me to get out of the way. I was shocked. I'd never been pushed by a stranger before. My mom immediately went into protective mode, angrily confronting him about pushing her child. The kid just repeated his insult, telling us to get out of the way and calling my mom a witch too. My mom demanded to know how he could be so offensive to us. The kid's mother stepped forward, looking like she'd just walked out of a fashion magazine with her fancy clothes. She defended her son, calling my mom an ignorant witch and claiming her precious child hadn't done anything wrong. My mom had enough and called for the store manager. When he arrived, Karen completely changed her story. She accused my mom of trying to molest her son and demanded all their shopping for free as compensation. The manager explained that he would need to review the security camera footage before offering any compensation. Karen must have realized she was caught in her lie because she completely lost it. She started kicking the manager with her expensive high heels. Then she signaled to her son, who joined in with his fancy sneakers. They actually managed to knock the manager down, and Karen started hitting him with her handbag. The poor manager could barely defend himself. Thankfully, my mom had already called the police. They arrived just as the kid delivered a brutal kick to the manager's ribs, sending him crashing to the floor. The manager looked like he was about to pass out. When the police officer asked Karen why she was beating the manager, she pointed at my mom and the manager, accusing them of trying to physically abuse her son. The police had already sent someone to check the security footage. The store had recently upgraded their system with high-definition cameras that captured both video and sound perfectly. It didn't take long for the truth to come out. The officer radioed for his colleagues to arrest both Karen and her son immediately. When they were being led away, the police asked my mom and the manager if they wanted to press charges. They both said yes without hesitation. I later found out that Karen got sentenced to 2 years in prison for assault. I never heard what happened to her son, but I hope he learned something from all this. The store manager recovered, and to make up for everything that happened, he gave me a discount on my iPad mini. Not that it made what happened okay, but at least my birthday ended on a slightly better note. My mother is the perfect example of what happens when you give someone too much power and money without them earning it. She married into wealth and turned into the most insufferable person you could imagine. Being her daughter was a nightmare. She's the type who thinks she owns everyone and everything around her. Growing up, my sister and I couldn't wait to escape. The moment college acceptance letters came in, we were gone. It wasn't just her constant demands and condescending attitude, it was how she treated our entire family, especially our aunt. See, my aunt is basically her complete opposite. The sweetest person you'll ever meet, always welcoming despite living in a not-so-great neighborhood. But Mom wouldn't let us visit her when we were kids because she thought we'd catch poor people's habits. This Thanksgiving, everything came to a head. My aunt called me first with the sweetest invitation, saying she'd love to have my sister and me over for Thanksgiving dinner. She was so humble about it, mentioning it wasn't much, but that family should be together on holidays. I'm 22 and single, with no real plans, so I agreed immediately. My sister needed some convincing since she wanted to host, but she eventually came around. Then came the call from Mother Dearest. She didn't invite. She demanded that I come home for Thanksgiving, bragging about having her private chef prepare dinner. When I told her I was going to Aunt's house instead, she completely lost it. She started yelling about how dare I choose such a poor excuse for a hostess over her, and insisted that I had to come to her house. I stood my ground and told her that I'd made my plans and wouldn't change them. She hung up on me, then did the same to my sister after getting the same response. A few days later, she called back with the most surprising request. She wanted to join us at Aunt's dinner, the same aunt she's been looking down on for years. My aunt, being the amazing person she is, welcomed her immediately. On Thanksgiving, everyone arrived except Mother. We were actually relieved and about to start without her when there was a knock at the door. There she stood, shaking, makeup ruined, barely able to stand straight. After we got her inside and calmed down with a blanket and hot drink, she told us what happened. She'd driven her Mercedes to Aunt's neighborhood, but couldn't possibly park it on the street with all the rusty cars. So she found a parking lot nearby and spotted some guys smoking in their car. Being her entitled self, she decided to march over and lecture them. She started berating them about their behavior, telling them it was unacceptable and demanding they leave immediately. Turns out, they were gang members. They pulled a gun on her, and she literally peed herself in fear. They took her purse, jewelry, and phone before letting her go, which honestly was merciful considering how she approached them. The whole experience shook her up pretty badly. She spent the rest of dinner quietly picking at her food, jumping at every noise from outside. For the first time in her life, she realized she wasn't untouchable. While she's still pretty entitled these days, she's definitely toned it down. She even started treating our aunt better, though that might be because she now knows firsthand that her bad neighborhood warnings weren't just snobbery, they were real. I'm not saying getting robbed at gunpoint was karma, but watching my mother realize she's not actually above everyone else was pretty satisfying. She doesn't go around lecturing strangers anymore, at least not in parking lots. I've been working at this fast food place for about 3 years now. We're pretty famous for our meat-heavy menu. Burgers, steaks, that kind of thing. I mainly work the front counter, but I'm close enough to the drive-thru window to see and hear everything that goes down there. The afternoon shift is usually pretty routine, but today was different. I was helping a customer at the counter when I heard the commotion start at the drive-thru window. My co-worker was working the window, and I could see him trying to keep his cool while dealing with what was unfolding. It all started when this contractor guy in a pickup truck was pulling away from the window. He had one of those utility trailers hitched to his truck. You know, the kind small businesses use to haul around their equipment. Nothing unusual about that. We get contractors coming through all the time during lunch rush. But then this woman in a shiny new SUV, who was clearly not paying attention, crashed right into the back of his trailer. The impact wasn't terrible, dented her front bumper pretty good and scratched up the trailer's fender, but it was definitely going to need some repair work. That's when everything went from 0 to 100 real quick. This woman, and I kid you not, literally jumped out of her car like it was on fire and started charging toward the contractor's truck, screaming at the top of her lungs. Karen started yelling that it was all his fault and that the trailer shouldn't even be on the road because it was illegal, though she never explained what she meant by that. The contractor, bless his heart, was way calmer than anyone would expect. He just slowly got out of his truck and looked at the damage while she kept ranting. He suggested they exchange insurance information and handle the situation properly, pointing out that she had rear-ended his properly hitched trailer. That's when my co-worker, who's known for not backing down from confrontation, decided to help out. He pulled out his phone and started taking pictures of both vehicles. the damage, and yes, the woman too. Smart thinking if you ask me. Well, that set her off even more. She spun around so fast I thought she'd get whiplash. Karen started screaming at my coworker, demanding that he stop taking pictures of her immediately. My coworker explained that he was taking the photos in case she decided to leave before the police arrived. The mention of police made her face do this interesting dance between rage and panic. She didn't back down completely, but you could tell it knocked some wind out of her sails. Karen kept questioning why he was doing this, seemingly ignoring his explanation about the police. My coworker simply said he was protecting his customers during an accident. This made Karen even more upset, and she started whining about how he should be protecting her instead, insisting that she was a customer too. My manager stuck her head out the window at this point, probably wondering if she needed to call the police herself, but the contractor had already done that. Karen finally got the message and moved her car to a parking spot, as far away from the contractor's truck as possible while still being in our lot. She sat there fuming, occasionally getting out of her car to pace around and make angry phone calls. The look on her face made it clear she was planning to speak to every manager in a 50-mile radius about this injustice. The police showed up pretty quickly. 2 officers took statements from everyone involved, reviewed the security camera footage, and checked out my coworker's photos. The whole time Karen kept trying to argue that the trailer was somehow illegal, but she couldn't explain why or how. The officers just kept writing in their notebooks, probably trying not to roll their eyes. The contractor turned out to be this really reasonable guy. When the police asked if he wanted to press charges or file a claim, he said he would have let the whole thing slide if she had just been civil about it. The damage to his trailer wasn't that bad, and he dealt with worse wear and tear just doing his job. But after her performance, he decided to file a claim after all. The police confirmed she was at fault for rear-ending him, and her insurance would have to pay for the repairs to his trailer. Plus, she got a ticket for following too closely. When she was leaving, I could hear her on the phone, probably with her insurance company, still trying to argue that she wasn't at fault. But the photos my coworker took, plus our security camera footage, told a different story. The contractor gave my coworker a thumbs up as he left, and things went back to normal. Well, as normal as they can be in fast food. At least we all got a story to tell at dinner. I work part-time at a local shop, and yesterday I had one of those experiences that make you question how entitled some people can be. But first, let me give you some context. My family has this close friend who I've always had to call Aunt even though we're not related. She has a teenage son who's on the autism spectrum, and while she's usually nice, she turns into a complete Karen when it comes to him. I've always had to call him cousin too, though again, no actual relation there. So my aunt and her son were staying at our house for a few days before their vacation. The son is 16 and quite smart. He speaks almost 3 languages, but can be childish sometimes. On this particular day, they arrived before my friend was supposed to pick me up for work. While we were sitting in the living room, I handed him my phone to play some games. Meanwhile, his mom was going on one of her usual rants. She kept complaining about how social networks were terrible, full of predators and liars, and how nothing good ever came from them. Of course, this didn't apply to her precious Facebook account. When my friend arrived to pick me up, I was so eager to leave that I completely forgot about my phone. I didn't realize my mistake until several hours later. When I got back home, Karen was waiting for me, practically fuming. I could hear her son crying in another room. My phone was sitting on the table, and my family was giving me these weird looks. I asked what had happened, and she responded by shoving my phone at me. That's when I discovered the chaos. My Facebook account was suspended. I was banned from a discussion group on Reddit. My Discord account had gotten me kicked from a server. I had angry messages from friends telling me someone was using my accounts to start arguments. Turns out, while his mom was oblivious to the fact he still had my phone, her son had gone through all my social media apps. He subscribed to various accounts related to his favorite book series and started arguing with people about plot points. When he got banned from the Reddit group, he tried begging the moderators to reverse it. When that didn't work, he went to Facebook and started insulting people who disagreed with his opinions about the book. He even tried getting support from other platforms, which only resulted in more people getting angry at me. Karen was angry at me. She started yelling that it was all my fault and that now her son couldn't enjoy his favorite book anymore because of the terrible experience he had. When I pointed out that he was the one who got my accounts banned and suggested he could just make his own accounts if he wanted to discuss the books, she completely refused. She contradicted herself by insisting that while social media was evil and dangerous, I needed to get him unbanned because this made him feel unwelcome. When I questioned the logic of saying social media was evil while wanting access to my accounts, she just demanded that, while he couldn't have his own accounts, he should be able to use mine and that I needed to fix this right away. My family understood my side, but since the kid was upset, I tried to fix things. Facebook was a lost cause. The Reddit moderator thought I was making up excuses and being immature. The Discord moderator was actually understanding after I explained the situation. The people on other platforms were split between being sympathetic and thinking I was just being a jerk. Karen's still convinced this is all my fault. She thinks I'm lying about not being able to get unbanned and that I'm just being mean to her son. Knowing her, she'll probably hold on to this belief for years, just like other situations in the past. The story did have a silver lining though. Later that evening, her husband called me to apologize about what happened and promised he would talk to both of them. A few days later, we discovered what really triggered this whole incident. The son had apparently called one of his friends when he got access to my phone. This friend thought it would be funny to tell him to start arguments online. When the ban started happening, this same kid encouraged him to complain on other platforms and antagonize the moderators. After we explained to her son how hurtful his actions were, he felt terrible and wanted to apologize. I helped him reach out to everyone he had argued with, and most people were understanding, except for that Reddit moderator who still wouldn't budge. When I called his dad to update him on the apology situation, he told me they'd gotten to the bottom of it. He explained that they had banned his son from talking to that friend unless there's supervision, saying that kid had been nothing but trouble. He also assured me not to worry about Karen, as he'd had a long talk with her about respecting other people's property and taking responsibility. The son ended up grounded, but more importantly, they finally addressed the real troublemaker, that friend, who'd been encouraging him to misbehave. And well, Karen's still giving me the cold shoulder, but at least her husband made sure there would be no more borrowing of my phone in the future. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.